27 Christians were slaughtered just 15 miles west of Jos, the capital of Plateau State. And of course, that population included 11 children below the ages of 7, including a 2-month-old. The last time we had an interview regarding that particular incident, I reported that there was a 3-year-old that was killed, but no, that wasn't the youngest of the victims. There was a 3-month-old, there was a 2-month-old, there was an 8-month-old, there was a 1-year-old, there were 2 years old. Actually, the oldest actually of the 11 children that comprised or that made up the 27 death toll, the 27 victims were below the ages of 7. And like you said, the Nigerian government is trying really hard, is struggling, I would say, to deny what has been happening. But what they cannot deny is the reality, the facts, the evidences, right? So you can deny that Christians are not being killed, but locations don't lie. The mass graves don't lie. Christians will not go and gather to bury empty caskets or to just wrap some substance, maybe wood or something, in white fabric just to put on the ground and just claim that is an instance of genocide. You cannot deny that.
From that video that you have just watched, those killings were done in Jos, Plateau State, and some others that you are still going to watch as our discussion progresses. I hope you understand how we got here as a CPC. That's what I mean. I've only given you a prelude to what a CPC is and how Nigeria got here. A country of particular concern, CPC, is a designation under the U.S. International Religious Freedom Act of 1988. It is used by the U.S. government to identify countries that engage in or tolerate a systematic, ongoing, and egregious violations of religious freedom in any given country. But let us be aware that this is not the first time Nigeria is declared a CPC. Nigeria first received a CPC designation in December 2020, when the U.S. Department of State flagged Nigeria for religious freedom violations, including attacks on religious minorities and failure to protect communities. It was later removed from the list in November 2021. Most recently, on 31st October 2025, which was yesterday, President Trump announced that Nigeria is being added to the list once again, citing alleged threats to the Christians in Nigeria and failures in protection by the Nigerian government. So what led to the designation? How did you get here? There are multiple strands that contribute to why Nigeria was designated. Some interlinked and some contested. The U.S. agency, that is the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom, has repeatedly called for Nigerian CPC designation, citing persistent attacks on religious minorities, especially Christians in certain states, and the failure by authorities to prosecute perpetrators and blasphemy laws that raise questions of religious freedom. For example, the March 2025 United States Commission on International Religious Freedom annual report stated that in 2024, hundreds of people were killed or kidnapped in religiously targeted violence, and that federal and state governments tolerated or did not seem adequately to respond. Earlier sources described the violence as systematic, ongoing, and egregious violations of religious freedom when Nigeria was designated in 2024. So it is a similar scenario we have here now of what happened in 2020. A recurring theme is that the Nigerian federal and state government are accused of insufficiently protecting citizens, failing to investigate or prosecute attacks, and sometimes tolerating or ignoring abuses. Some analysts and religious leaders argue that what is happening is not only religious persecution, but also a wider security and governance breakdown in the country. Here is a video of the aftermath of some attacks, not just in Plateau, but in other parts of the country.
Massacre Christian. If they say they kill Muslims, Muslims are being killed. By who? By Muslims. Tired to be outside performing prayer every day. And they expect us to silence. Now, it's an order. Nigerian government came out openly and denied there is no massacre, there is no genocide of Christians in Nigeria. And look at it today. Is there any Muslim here? United Nations, I know you're watching me. American Senate, you are watching what I'm doing, I'm saying here. Special advisor to Trump. Now, please tell Trump to save our life in Nigeria. They are killing Christians in Nigeria. Massacre Christians. If they say they kill Muslims, Muslims are being killed. By who? By Muslims.
For instance, Matu Hassan Kuka, Catholic Bishop of Sokoto Diocese, warned that while there is a religious dimension, the underlying problem is the weakness of the state, and the level of the CPC may complicate recovery. The latest announcement emphasized that Christianity is facing an existential threat in Nigeria. That is a different angle. However, several Nigerian voices dispute the claim that the violence is exclusively or predominantly religion-based. They point out that people of different faiths are victims to all these attacks, and that the causes include terrorism, banditry, farmer-herder conflict, ethnic tensions, and the proliferation of no-state armed actors. In short, the designation is driven by serious security and religious freedom concerns, but the framing, the interpretation, and underlying causes are broader and contested. They are broader in scope. However, now that Nigeria has been designated, what are the consequences? What happens now and going forward? The CPC designation brings a set of potential consequences, no doubt, some of which are immediate, and others are more of a long-term issue. Also, it carries risk and opportunities for Nigeria, its government, and its citizens alike. We must note that the designation gives the US government legal basis to impose sanctions, restriction of foreign aid, and aids that's arms or defense equipment controls on Nigeria. They have to control over supplies of arms to Nigeria. This is where it should concern every Nigerian, because our military needs to maintain this ongoing momentum against the non-state actors and not any restriction on arms supply chain. They need every support to continue to keep this fight going. The designation may also negatively impact Nigeria's image internationally, leading to increased security or scrutiny of human rights records, freedom of religion issues, and overall governance. It could affect bilateral relations between Nigeria and the US and other Western partners. It has negative consequences. It could just impact negatively religious freedom and advocacy groups also, and international NGOs. This may affect the relationship, the bilateral relationship between them and Nigeria. But domestically, the government may feel pressure to respond to what is happening. This could push for reforms in how religious freedom is protected, how security forces respond to attacks, how blasphemy laws are applied, and how justice is administered. On the other hand, some Nigerian religious and civic leaders fear that the label might undermine ongoing interfaith dialogue, weaken national cohesion, and hamper efforts at peace building. For example, Bishop Kuka warned that designating Nigeria a CPC would only increase tensions, sow doubt, and embolden perpetrators of such violence. There may also be impact on military and security cooperation as far as this designation is concerned. If sanctions or arms restrictions follow, Nigeria's ability to fight insurgency, banditry, and extremist groups could be affected. Just like I said earlier, Christian leaders have cautioned that weakening security assistance could backfire in the fight against banditry. For religious minorities, the CPC designation may bring hope of more attention, accountability, and protection. But on the flip side, the designation might escalate suspicion among communities, heightened fear of being singled out or become politicized in local narratives about religion. Broader societal trust issues could deepen if Nigeria believe or other people believe that the government is being shamed internationally rather than being supported to bring reforms. Though the CPC level is about religious freedom, its spillover effect can touch on the economy as well. Foreign investment or investors may be cautious if governance risk increase. People want to be cautious about their investments. Aid or grants may be conditions, and trade relations might become more complex for Nigeria. Nigeria, being Africa's most populous economy in many respects, means that any major disruptions could have regional ripple effects in the continent. Going forward, what Nigeria and stakeholders should consider is that the Nigerian government can use this as a catalyst to strengthen rule of law and enforcement, ensure more timely investigations, prosecutions of attacks on civilians, accountability for those who orchestrate religious or related offenses and the violence in other parts of the country. There should be reform of state level laws, especially in northern states, where Sharia and local laws interplay to ensure equality, religious freedom, and non-discrimination. Bishop Kuka highlighted this need also. The government should strengthen institutional capacity, that is, the police, judiciary, local governments, to protect vulnerable communities, irrespective of religion. Government should improve data collection and transparency about incidents of violence, be it religious, ethnic, or communal, so that policy is driven by facts, not only narratives. There should be interfaith and community engagement. They should prioritize initiatives that build trust between religious communities, that is, Christians, Muslims, and others. Policies must emphasize shared vulnerability and collective security rather than only one faith victimization. Local civil society Faith leaders and grassroots organizations should be included in designing responses to religious violence and governance, the gaps in between. There should be that creation and to close up the gaps. Narrative management is important. Avoid framing the situation exclusively as one faith versus another. Many analysts caution that the reality is more complex than what it is being analyzed. Nigerians should engage diplomatically to clarify facts, share reforms, and request support for capacity building rather than sanctions alone. Some Nigerian leaders argue that the country needs support, not only punitive measures. International partners, including the US, should balance accountability with cooperation. Sanctions may have unintended effects if they hamper security assistance needed to control insurgents and bandits. The government and stakeholders should anticipate the reputational risk. Being on a CPC list may trigger increased media attention, NGO campaigns, and potential conditionalities on aid. There is also an internal risk that heightened religious tensions may be weaponized politically or socially. Ensuring that religious freedom is genuinely protected, that is for all groups, can mitigate such risk. The designation of Nigeria as a country of particular concern marks a significant moment. It signals that external actors see serious deficiencies in Nigeria's protection of religious freedom, especially in the face of violence and governance. At the same time, this label brings both potential leverage for reform and risk of unintended negative consequences. For Nigeria, this moment should not simply be about reacting to an external level, but about seizing the opportunity to address underlying governance, security, justice, and interfaith cohesion issues. If handled well, it could lead to positive change. But if mishandled, it could deepen mistrust, hamper security cooperation, and create new vulnerabilities. For the international community, it is a reminder that systems of human rights and religious freedom are deeply bound up with security, governance, and social cohesion, especially in countries grappling with insecurity or insurgency, communal conflict, and weak institutions. All are encompassed. The path ahead is challenging, but the stakes are high. Nigeria's internal stability, the protection of its diverse religious communities, and its international standing all hang in the balance. Thank you.